This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Welcome back to the Warner Brothers podcast. I'm Kyle, joined today by Branndon. Branndon, what's up?
Yo, what's going on, Kyle? How you doing?
Chilling. Listen, we told you before we're gonna react to the NBA trade deadline, and to be honest, nothing crazy. Well, actually, your team did make a trade since we last talked, but nothing too crazy actually on deadline day. But I'd say overall deadline week was pretty active. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it was very active. I felt like even up to the buzzer at 3 p.m. today. Like I feel like it was a very active week. Like honestly, like I kind of felt just in terms of overall moves, I kind of felt like it was more active than the past couple of years.
I'd agree with that.
I mean, it was just like going on because I was on Twitter for majority of the day today, and just like felt like every 10, 15 minutes, like Underdog would come out with a trade, or like Shams would come out with a trade, or somebody else, and might not have been, the headliners when it comes to players and stuff, but like I felt like it was very active, and honestly, good to see.
I'd agree with that. I'd been worried that since this new CBA, that like from here on out, the trade deadline would be weird. That we'd get some inactive years, more active. Usually every year is active. Just some years it's like all role players. This year was legendary, obviously, but so I'd heard someone say like a week or two ago, like watch out, it's going to be a very active deadline. It's like, oh, cool. Little did we know it'd be Luka and all these guys, but out of all the deals, excluding Luka, obviously, what surprised you the most?
Oh man, I think to me the most surprising one was not necessarily the player, but I think in terms of the fit is Brandon Ingram. Going to Toronto, like it just like I think I probably could have picked out probably about 5+ teams that like I could have seen Ingram going to, and Toronto wouldn't have been on there just because like the fit, like just like I don't know, like I feel like you have a lack of ball handlers there, and like you've got a bunch of guys that are kind of in the same mold per sense. So like maybe they have similar skill sets with Scotty and RJ and Ingram, and then like you've got quickly at the one, which is very interesting. So that to me was like a little bit of a head scratcher because it's like, all right, like what is Toronto trying to accomplish with that move? Like, yeah, Brandon Ingram's a great player, and I think he could be the number 2 guy on a playoff team. But like you're essentially bringing him in as your de facto number 1. So it was a little bit of a head scratcher because it's like, all right, like what's Toronto doing? Like they're really not in contention this year. I don't think they'll be in contention even after the move. Are they loading up to make a run at somebody next year? Like, what are they doing? So like when I saw that was a head scratcher to me. Not because the player, because I did think Ingram was going to get traded, but more so the fit.
Not only that, like they're in the lottery sweepstakes, right?
Yeah.
Cooper Flagg's coming out next year, and in general, it sounds like a loaded draft. And then you add Brandon Ingram, who can win you a few games. I mean, that roster, we were just talking, that roster's kind of nice just for what it is. Like, it's a bad team record-wise, but there's players other teams would like, in theory.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you go get Brandon Ingram. It almost seems like that would kind of take you out of the lottery a little bit, or at least, as far as ping pong balls go. Because it does. I don't think they're close enough to the play-in. I'd have to look. But super weird team. I completely agree with you because ultimately, what are you going to do with Brandon Ingram, who's still young, by the way? He's still like 28, but what's your goal? Like, are you trying to make the play-in next year? Are you trying to be a playoff team? Like you said, are they trying to package him? So that was a head-scratching one. It's a good move for them in theory. You know what? The Pelicans are kind of the same, though, because they got good pieces back. Who did they get back? Remind me.
Oh, man.
I remember liking the trade, but I can't. There's been so much movement. I forgot exactly who they got. Let me take a quick look.
I actually don't even remember either. This because
I remember
there were so many.
Well, I'm about to tell you. Okay, so they got Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk back.
Okay.
Two rotation players, Bruce Brown especially. And the Pelicans already seem 10 deep to me, right? And then
Yeah.
they get rid of Ingram, who's kind of a ball stopper. Get, again, two more players who can play, and they're going to be in the lottery. And
Yeah.
Zion, I'm assuming, will be shopped this summer, right? Obviously wasn't traded today. So two teams who are kind of the same. The Pelicans seem to have more direction in general. Um, but yeah, they're confounding teams for sure. How did you feel about the Lakers trade getting Mark Williams last night? I know
I
LA
love.
Nation's fired up about that. So
I mean, if I was a Laker fan, I'd be fired up too. Shout out to Duke this morning.
Duke was hyped. Duke was definitely
For
hyped.
his escapade that he went on. I was trying to read that and I was like, I have no idea what he was saying. I liked it honestly. Like I felt like they needed a center. I know we had mentioned like Nick Claxton, guys like that. I really honestly didn't think that Mark Williams like would have been available. Like I understand he's injury prone. Like I think he's missed like 59% of his career games or something from what I saw today.
God damn.
Which is a lot. Like you're definitely taking a gamble there. But like Keenan said in the group chat last night, like he's a pretty damn good player. Like he'll get you 15 and 10 any given night, and then he's also got the potential to go off for 20, 25 plus.
Yeah.
He's not the best rim protector. He does block shots, but like one-on-one defense, he's not the best in terms of a paint protector. But like I think it's great because like yeah, it will help out on the defensive end, I think, team-wise. But I think the biggest impact is rebounding and then offensively. Um, and honestly, too, that's kind of the center mold that has worked with Luka the past couple of years.
For sure. For sure.
Like he's a great lob threat. Like you get him off the pick and roll into the basket. Throw it up to him. He's I think 7'2", big guy. Like I love the move, and I don't really understand the outrage. Like I understand giving up Dalton Connect. Like that was a guy you just took top 10 in the draft this year. Um, but they've already got a guy like that on the roster with Austin Reeves. I would have rather given up Connect versus Austin Reeves. So I agree with that. What was it? Connect and Cam Reddish.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
honestly, for starting center, like yeah, the injury concerns are there, but like if you could get him healthy, if he could give you 30 to 34 a game minutes wise, I think it works out well for the Lakers. And I think starting five wise, I think they have a pretty damn good starting five now.
I agree. I'm very interested to see what the buyout market looks like for LA. Because their roster, in theory, looks okay right now.
Yeah.
You kept Reeves, which is interesting. Whether he'll be on the team past the summer, who knows? But like that's another creator right there.
Yeah.
So you got Doncic, LeBron. Reeves can spot up a little bit, so that's what I'm really interested in. You got, like you said, Mark Williams is good in the pick and roll, big body. Like he'll work with LeBron and Luka. But who's spotting up and making these threes when it comes to the playoffs? They're sitting at the 5 seed right now. So, I mean, they're going to need shooters. So I'll be interested if they go get Middleton, maybe, if he's a buyout guy, or any one of these guys who, I mean, we don't know who's getting bought out yet, but if they can get a shooter or two that can just spot up, which Connect would have been for them, that could go a long way. How do you see
Yeah.
this roster as constructed right now? How far do you see them going? Do you see this being a first round exit team, semifinal team? Do you think they have a shot at the conference finals?
I think they have a good shot at the conference finals. Like
Really?
I think even with what they have, like I think it all depends on how Luka and LeBron kind of come together. But like I really do, like I think they have enough. Like I understand you've got OKC there and like all that sort of stuff, but like which they have a ton of talent, but what OKC lacks is playoff experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big thing. Like I still think on paper that OKC has a better roster overall than LA. But like you said, the buyout market, like if they could go and get maybe like a backup guard, if they could go and bring Schroeder back, if they could get Reggie Jackson off the buyout market, because I'm assuming he's going to get bought out.
Mm-hmm.
Like you bring in a secondary ball handler like that can come in and run your second unit. Like I think that could be pretty good. Like, and then too, like I think another big thing for like the bench unit, like is Gabe Vincent. the kind of looking like the typical Miami Heat player that leaves Miami, gets a bag, and doesn't really do anything.
Yep.
I think they're going to need something out of him. Like I really do. Like because Gabe's a pretty good 3-point shooter. Like he's good enough to throw up 5 or 6 a game. Yeah, like you said, like in terms of threes, like is it Reeves? Like is Finney Smith going to transition into
It's true.
even more of a 3-and-D player? Like Rui's got to be able to knock down threes. Like I think they have a good team. Like I really do. Like if they made the Western Conference Finals, then like I don't think I'd be shocked.
Mm.
Like especially with Luka and LeBron, like two of the better playoff performers
For
in
sure.
the NBA.
For
And like
sure.
honestly too, like it's good for LeBron because, like you said, with Mark Williams as a pick and roll guy, LeBron doesn't really have to do as much. Um, he can still go out and put up 25, 30 if he wants to, but like I don't think he needs to do that
Most
because
definitely.
now I'm assuming Luke is going to take over as the number one guy. You've got Braun as your number two. Like I think that works wonders for Reeves too because I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of him and honestly a lot of attention too. So like I think Reeves is going to get more open shots. I think it's going to be good for Rui. So like I said, I think it mainly just depends on how Luka and Braun play together, but I could see the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of selling me on it when you say that. I right now I could see semifinals, and then if it's the right matchup, maybe get to the conference finals, depending on who they get in the semis. Um, I'm just as it is everyone else. I'm super interested to see this LeBron Luca dynamic.
Yeah.
LeBron said back to the Kyrie days in Cleveland, like, "Oh, I'm going to let him take over. I'm going to let Anthony Davis take over," and then never does. You know what I mean? He's
Mm-hmm.
still getting his 27, 7 and 7, and
Yeah.
got the ball in his hands all the time. Luca, and by the way, with Westbrook too, when Westbrook was there, Westbrook did not thrive there for that reason. He didn't have the ball in his hands. When it comes to
Yeah.
Luca, I think LeBron knows well enough to be like, all right, like I actually can just chill here, and we're gonna get either a layup at the rim, a Luca step back three, or someone's getting a wide open three off of this. So
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see it. It's honestly going to be like must see TV from the All Star break on to see how this dynamic works. But
Yeah. Absolutely.
there's a world. I think I would have liked Claxton better for them at the 5. Um, Not sure if you saw this. You know, Ben Simmons got bought out too by the Nets.
Really, I did not see that.
He did, yeah. And they said Cleveland is an option for him. They didn't mention the Lakers, which is interesting, but they mentioned Cleveland and the Clippers. And that's noteworthy to me because I remember when he wanted to get
Wow.
traded out of Philly, his 3 places he wanted to go was the LA Lakers, the LA Clippers, and the Kings. Like he was
Yeah.
destined to be in Cali. So
On the
I
West
can't
Coast.
imagine him going to the Cavs. The Clippers get him though. For some, I don't know if the Lakers can get him or if that's too far out of their price range. I don't know. But I mean, even he could play center for you in theory and play great defense for you in theory
Yeah.
too. So
And
um,
facilitate.
and facilitate, yeah. That'd
Yeah.
be 2 of like LeBron's like Luca and Ben Simmons are like 2 of LeBron's like godchildren almost. You know what I mean? Like they kind of
Yeah.
both pattern games after LeBron in some form or fashion. So that would be interesting. Uh, Before I give a rundown on some moves I thought were interesting, I want to ask you about Miami and Golden State. That's your squad. You've been dying for them to get rid of Jimmy the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you feel about it?
Um, so I know at first I was a little bullish on it. I know I had texted in the group chat and I had texted you separately too. And I was like, I wanted KD instead. This and that. Like I didn't hate it. And then I kind of started looking at the numbers and whatnot. The first report came out that it was Wiggins and Schroeder, Kyle Anderson in the first, which should be, I'm going to assume, in the 10 to 20 range. And Miami's been very good in drafting guys at that range. Bam was in the 15s. Tyler was in the 15s. I think Khalil Ware was 15 or 16 this past year. Jaime was like 18th. Um, but honestly, like, I love the move now. If I had to give it a grade, I'd give it a B plus to A minus.
Mm,
I think for multiple reasons. I think number one, you got a very good return for Jimmy Butler, and that's Andrew Wiggins, who's like I told you before we got on here, I think he's 6 years younger than Butler. He's 29. Butler's 35. Butler turns 36 this year. Wiggins turns 30 this year. He's proven that he can be a number 2 guy on a championship caliber team. And I think too with Heat culture, like I really do think that like there could be a little bit more untapped potential there with Wiggins. A lot of people forget that like this guy was one of the best players coming out of high school, coming out of college, like all that sort of stuff. And
Sure.
like people, if I remember correctly, people were like, "Oh yeah, this is like the next LeBron." Like
He
comparing him
was
to
highly
LeBron.
touted. He definitely had
Yeah,
hype. He for sure had hype.
he had he almost kind of had the Zion kind of hype. It was a little bit died down, but it was kind of in that same stratosphere.
Especially with the athleticism, because like
Yeah,
his mixtapes went crazy. He was definitely getting like, I remember him getting like T Mac comparisons or even Durant comparisons, given his size and even Kawhi comparisons. I remember him
yeah,
coming out. So he's definitely, like me and Keenan were talking last night, and Tim, like he does forever have this untapped potential because of his athleticism, his wingspan. You want him in places like Golden State previously, and then now Miami. Like those are the
yeah.
places that you feel can get the best out of him, unlike a place like Minnesota. Um, so like if as long as he's not involved in a trade package eventually, because it seems like, I mean, Pat Riley's old. Like I'm assuming y'all want to go for rings. You know what I mean? I don't think he's
Yeah.
trying to rebuild, and you guys are staying competitive. Y'all should be in the playoffs, at the least the play in this year, right? So I'll be very interested to see like what the next move is, what your roster looks like next year. Will Wiggins be a part of that? Because he is someone you want as a role player.
Yeah,
Were you upset
absolutely.
with not getting Kaminga in this deal?
Um, I was. I wanted Kaminga. That honestly, like, I knew getting Kaminga back as the primary piece wasn't going to work out financially just because of how the cap works.
Mm-hmm.
Golden State would have had throwback money. And I really don't even know if there was a way for us to get Kaminga. There probably could have been. I really like. I wanted Kaminga. I think I told you I was like, look, I was like Kaminga. We were talking about this weeks ago. Like Kaminga, when that report first came out that we were talking to Golden State, I was like, Kaminga's a guy that I want. Like, you get a young guy, yeah, you got to pay him, but like he fits with Bam's timeline, like he fits with Tyler's timeline. And then I was like, all right, like Andrew Wiggins, like I wouldn't hate Andrew Wiggins because like he's a very underrated defender, great 3-point shooter, and like you said, he's got a lot of in terms of his athleticism. There's a lot that you can do with him. So like that's what I said. I really came around to it because if you could get Wiggins to a 20-21 a game kind of guy, getting good to great defense out of him, and he's shooting at a 37-38% clip, then I'll take it.
True.
Definitely would have taken Kaminga, but I also looked at it this way too. Like they had to trade for Butler. Like Jimmy is also 35. Like you gotta. There's obviously the elephant in the room with the contract.
Mm-hmm.
There always seems to be an issue with him forcing his way out of places. He did it in Minnesota. He did it in Philly. Like he's done it everywhere. He did it obviously now in Miami.
For
So like I
sure.
could understand why Golden State didn't want to give up Kaminga. But yeah, I definitely if we would have gotten Kaminga, I probably would have given this like a plus 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 like five
Wow.
times over.
Okay, so big Kaminga guy. All right.
Yeah, I love
So
Kaminga.
moving off of that, and I will say, just in response, I'm surprised. Like, if you would have asked me 3 days ago, what are they going to get for Jimmy Butler? I would have honestly thought it would have been like less than Andrew Wiggins, like a
Yeah,
bench guy and some draft picks, like just to offload him. So the fact that they got Wiggins, I think, is good. But moving on to the Jimmy Butler part of it, how do you feel for Golden State? How do you see this playing out?
I think honestly, I think for it to be a success, it's got to go one way, and they've got to compete for a Western Conference Final. And honestly, too, like this is like I feel like this is kind of like your last kind of hoorah with Steph Curry.
For
Like I
sure.
really do. Like I don't think you get another one after this. And I mean, you show you're going all in. They gave Jimmy what 2 years, 121 million, which
Yeah,
at that age is ridiculous
it's
for a
insane.
contract.
It's
Like
insane.
you were putting all your eggs into that basket that Jimmy comes in and just kind of transforms this team, like from a defensive identity and even like a physicality standpoint.
Mhm.
Like I think it could work because like obviously if you're playing off of Curry, you're playing off of Buddy Hield, two amazing 3-point shooters. Like they've got some guys there like um, Pajimski, obviously Kaminga, like Draymond Green's still there. What I'm worried about is the Draymond Green Jimmy Butler thing. Like, how's that going to work out? Because
Fire
those
and
two guys,
fire
yeah, personality wise, like they're one and the same. Like,
for sure.
I feel like all it's going to take is just one really bad argument between them two, and it goes downhill from there.
Yeah, that Jordan Poole situation that would turn into a full out brawl with Jimmy
Yeah,
and Draymond. And, who
yeah,
knows? Could result in Steve Kerr in the middle, and he gets clocked, and then you don't have a coach. Like what's gonna happen?
yeah.
Uh, so how do you feel? Like, how do you feel about it this year, and then how do you feel about it 2 years from now, per se?
I think in terms of this year, I feel a lot better about it because if you look 2 years from now, or even next year, like Curry's going to be what, 37, 36, 37. Jimmy will be 36 going on 37. Like, I really think like I really think that it's the year for them to make a run. Like, honestly, like I understand the 2 year deal and all that, but like as these guys get older and older, we've already seen Curry is falling off a cliff. Not, it hasn't been a huge drop off, but like you can definitely tell that like there's some drop off there. Jimmy, there's definitely some drop off. Um, with him, it could be a little bit more so of like the kind of attitude thing and the motivation. Um, but personally, I wouldn't have given him that contract. I understand he did. I would have rather let him play out the rest of the year and then maybe kind of talk about it next year. Um,
I agree with
I
that.
understand I understand he had the player option, but I think it was a little bit premature, especially that much money. Um,
Yeah, the player option was like 50 mil.
yeah, so like I don't know how it looks annually, but I mean, if you figure if you're going to divide it in two, that's like 60.5 million, something like that,
Crazy. It's
which is
crazy.
way more, which is almost 10 million more than that player option. Um, so I really think it's this year. I think it's do or die this year because I don't know. Like I come next year, like if you told me that Golden State just fell off a cliff because Curry and Butler are on the wrong side of their 30s, like I wouldn't be surprised. And it depends on Kaminga too, because the other thing is too with Kaminga, they've got to pay him, and you've
It's
got
true.
Curry making all this money, you've got Jimmy making all this money, you've got Draymond making all this money, you've got Buddy Hield who's on a decent sized contract. Like it's going to be hard, and Kaminga's probably going to be a 35-40 million dollar annually kind of guy, maybe even more.
Wow.
So
That's wild.
like I think fit wise, I think it could be good, but I think they were desperate. Like I really do.
For sure. For sure. So let me
And
ask you this. You've been watching Miami this year. Jimmy's played here and there, right? Like as far as caring, like actual, like meaningful basketball, he kind of decides when he wants to play. When he has
yeah,
been locked in, do you think that's a piece like that's worthy for Golden State? Like he seems like he can still create a shot, which is good. Like he's not top tier athleticism, still pretty athletic. Do you like his defense still? Do you think he will be able to at least like take a load off of straight Steph Curry's shoulders here?
I think so. Like you said, I think it really mainly depends on his motivation. I don't think there's going to be an issue with that because Golden State was on his kind of short list of preferred teams, and he got the contract extension. Um, I think the big thing is going to be health. Like he's been relatively healthy, but the injury bug has kind of hit him a little bit. I think defensively, like I know Draymond's there, but like I think Jimmy can just take it up another notch or two. Like honestly, like they were a decent defensive team before Jimmy.
It's true.
Um, honestly, I think a motivated Jimmy. I wouldn't like. I expect him to come in and put up kind of what he's done in Miami the past couple of years. I think he's going to be a 20 to 21 per game kind of guy. I think he's going to go in and put up, the typical 5, 6 rebounds, a couple assists here and there, and really set the tone.
Mm,
I think the skill is still there, and I don't think he's regressed a whole lot. So I could see him I could see him finishing out this year as like a high end caliber kind of year. and then maybe after that, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a step back. But I think defensively, I mean, I think he could work. Like I said, if he's truly motivated, I think he could work wonders for Golden State defensively.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like, I think this year he could make an impact. Maybe they get out of the play-in picture and get into the actual playoff picture. Um, it's the next 2 years I'm worried about with him. Just his
Yeah,
style of play, like just how he's been. He's not quite like Allen Iverson in his prime or Dwayne Wade, where he's just constantly crashing. But like you said, the injury bug seems to get him here and there, where he's missing 8 to 15 games here and there. If he can add just a little bit of a 3-point shot and stay healthy, it might be okay. It might be
yeah,
okay for the Warriors. They still do got a deep team. But my worry would be down the line. Whereas this year, I think you're kind of right. They could maybe if things go right, make a little bit of a run. So I mean, same question as I asked with the Lakers. Do you see them being a round two team, round one exit? Do you see conference finals for them at all with this Jimmy thing?
I think their ceiling is a round two team. I just
Okay.
because I'm looking at it kind of like what I'm going to compare them to the Lakers and
Okay.
like use that as kind of like my assessment. Um, Top end talent, I'm taking Luka and LeBron over Curry and over Curry and Jimmy. Um, I think Curry and LeBron are right there on that same level.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking probably two of the greatest 10 NBA players of all time, 15, wherever you want to put Curry at. I know there's different discussions for that. But then you look at Jimmy and Luka. That's a whole different caliber player we're talking
For
about here.
sure. For sure.
Um, yeah, they have good pieces. Like, mainly, I think honestly, I don't even know like if it depends on Jimmy. Like, I think it more so hinges on the younger guys. I really think it hinges off of what Kaminga and Podziemski does.
So who's
Like,
supporting cast do you like more?
I like I would lean Golden State
I think I agree with you.
because Buddy Hield, you got Buddy Hield, you've got Draymond, Kaminga.
I think it fits more in Golden State.
Yeah, I think so. I just think the top end talent is what carries LA a little bit more.
Very
Um,
true. Very true.
because, like I said, like Luca, you can put Curry and LeBron on the same level if you want to. But Luca, I mean, Luca, honestly, like I think Luca is comparable to Jimmy, to Draymond, and to Buddy Hield. Like I think Luca in terms of output and just like overall as a player, I think he's like two or three
Yeah.
of individual players of Golden State.
That's a pretty good comparison of the three too with Draymond. Like he definitely brings the rebounding and playmaking of Draymond, not the defense, and he brings the at least like getting into the paint that Jimmy Butler does, and then the shooting of Buddy
Yeah,
Hield. So I get what you're saying there. Um, yeah, man. I mean, the one thing about this with Jimmy Butler, he could definitely unlock Curry. Like Curry's like had these
yeah,
good games here and there, but he was literally the only creator. So we talk about Luca with LeBron. This should take a world of a load off of Steph Curry's shoulders. So,
yeah.
I mean, we might see him go on a run here after the break where he's just like finally comfortable, finally getting open shots, not just creating for himself and having Draymond have to, find him in the corner off 45 screens. So,
Yeah, and honestly, I would love it too because like I have no bad feelings towards Jimmy. I still love Jimmy Butler. He's still one of my favorite players in the NBA. I
interesting.
really do honestly hate the fact that he had to leave Miami, um, but I do think it was a little overdue.
Mm.
Just because of the fact that Miami kind of stayed. Yeah, they made the finals, but they stayed stagnant for so long. So like, I honestly would not be mad if Jimmy went to Golden State and they had a tremendous amount of success. I would love it from a basketball standpoint as a basketball fan too, because like you give Curry one more opportunity, to go and be great. Like I'm definitely rooting for Jimmy and I'm rooting for Golden State because I want it to work out for Golden State because I don't want it to kind of I don't want it to blow up in their face,
Mm.
especially with what you gave up for Jimmy and the contract too. So like more so rooting for Jimmy, but I'm also rooting for Golden State.
Damn. So you're departing with your best player with grace. I like that. I like that. You don't hear that often from fan bases when their best player, especially in the way he like this has been a month and a half, 2 month thing with Jimmy Butler where he's been
Yeah.
really trying to get out of Miami and this whole standoff with Pat Riley. So cool that y'all could end with grace. I'm not sure if the rest of the Miami fan base feels that way, but it's cool.
Probably not. I might get flamed for that one, but I don't
Might be in the
care.
minority. Might be in the
Yeah.
minority. So let me ask you this. This deal was interesting to me. We talked about it a little bit before we get
Mhm.
on here. Kuzma to the Bucks for Chris Middleton. Do you feel like that impacts the Bucks at all?
I think offensively it could, because Kuzma was putting up decent numbers in Washington as kind of like their de facto one or two guy, however you want to look at it. Um, like we had discussed before we got on, Middleton has definitely fallen off. Um, he's definitely hit a rather sharp decline. I think he's still a good player, but in terms of Milwaukee, I like it for Milwaukee. Um, I think Kuzma's a number three. I really think that he's going to be able to feed off of Dame and Giannis.
Mm,
Um, like I would take him like I told you before. Before we got on, I think Kuzma right now is a better player than Middleton.
sure.
2 years ago, I probably would have told you, hey, I probably would have told you, hey, Middleton's better, but he's 33, 34 now. And some people just don't have that longevity to where when they get in their mid 30s that, they sustain prior production. Um, I love it for Milwaukee. I think to get a third scorer like that with Kuzma, with somebody that can go out and drop 20, 25 on any given night and sometimes 30, and he can go out and get his own shot. He can shoot a three. It might be a step down defensively compared to Middleton because we all know that Middleton's a pretty damn good defender. Um, but I think it takes a little bit of the load off of Dame and off of Giannis.
It's true. That is
Love
true.
it from love it for Milwaukee. For Washington, it's kind of like, all right, like what are you doing here? Like you get Middleton on a, I want to say his APY on his contract is probably in the 30s. I could be wrong. Um, Might be high 20s, low 30s. I don't know. It's interesting for Washington because it's like, all right, like what are you doing? Like, I don't know how many years Kuzma has left on his contract. I'd have to imagine it's probably not that many. Um, I don't know. Like, I felt you could have got a better return for Kuzma.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, it
part
does
of
seem that way. It does seem that way for sure. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but like, I feel like you could do a little bit better than a 34-year-old Chris Middleton. Like, I
Right.
really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with you. I have no idea what Washington's doing. I mean, we know that they're trying to be bad. Yeah. But it's like, all right, why did you go get Chris Middleton of all players? Why did you go get Marcus Smart today from the
Yeah,
Grizzlies of all players? And then you said to me that it seems like they actually want to keep Marcus Smart to have a mentor the younger players. Okay, that's cool in theory, but Marcus Smart went to the Grizzlies to help them win a ring. Obviously, he was
yeah,
traded for Porzingis and whatever. Like he didn't have control about going to the Grizzlies, but I'm sure ultimately he liked it there because it was a competitive situation. Now you're
yeah,
going to Washington where it's like basketball hell. There's nothing. There's nothing for you to do there,
yeah,
right? I mean, it's just a bunch of young guys. Like that's why I can't even really react to the Kyle Kuzma thing because it's cool in theory. You got younger. Middleton was coming off the bench. Like he was not at all what they expected when he came back from the injury this year.
yeah.
Okay, but all right, what is Kuzma at this point? Like I'm going to be completely honest with you. Have not seen a ton of Washington Wizards games over the last 2 years. Like why would I
Yeah.
watch the Wizards? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, Kyle Kuzma's going from playing for the LA Lakers, playing for championships, right? Playing for a contender, to playing for absolutely nothing in Washington, to now going right back into the contender picture with Milwaukee. You know,
Yeah.
um, it should be an upgrade, like you said. In theory, it's going to be an upgrade, but is his defense still there? How's his spot up shooting? Like these are questions I'm asking because I really don't know. He was an okay
Yeah.
spot up shooter. He was more of a microwave guy when he was with Bron's team in LA. But as far as spot up shooting, which he's definitely going to need to do, that might be a little tough. I don't know, and I could be completely wrong. I'm going to look up his shooting in a sec, but I do agree with you. Just off the dribble,
Mhm.
that's going to take a load off Giannis and Dame, and it really could be, especially if he can defend at all. or if he can play the 4 when they move Giannis to the 5, when Brook Lopez is out of the lineup, that could be a devastating lineup. It really could.
I could, yeah.
I'm gonna look up Kyle Kuzma's shooting, and then
They also got Kevin Porter Jr. today too, which I thought was
that's right. That's right.
pretty
I forgot
cool.
about that.
Like that's another good. They had Milwaukee, like they made that move, but they also had some like weird, like it was kind of lateral moves, I guess. But I did like Kevin Porter Jr. I think that's
He's
a good
shot creator. He's a shot creator
yeah.
at least.
I want to say Kuzma's like a 36% plus shooter from three.
He is so for his career, he's at 33. The last his first year in Washington was 34. It doesn't even seem like he was there for 4 seasons, but he went 34% to 33% to 33% to this year 28%.
Oh shit, I was way off. Damn.
Yeah, he went down. He went down. He was once upon a time 36% in LA. He's kind of been up and down, shooting 42% for the field. But you know what? With Giannis and Dame, we can assume this is all going to go up. And if he really is willing, he does shoot 5 a game, 5, 6. So he does get him up. So he'll have wide open threes to shoot. Um, but so do you think, how do you feel about the Bucks going forward in general now with Kuzma, with now Kevin Porter Jr., assuming he's going to be part of the rotation? Specifically, how do you feel about them versus the Knicks? Do you feel like they got better over the Knicks since the Knicks made no moves today?
I honestly, I still would have to kind of consider that maybe like a 50-50 kind of thing. Like I know the Knicks aren't deep, um, but the Bucks, like yeah, you've got Bobby, like they've got Bobby Portis, obviously bringing in Kevin Porter.
I think they might have traded Portis the other day. I
Did
could be
they?
wrong. I could be completely wrong about that. Hold on, that could have been. Never mind. I could be thinking about when I think Golden State was looking to trade for Bobby Portis.
I was like, damn, I didn't see that.
Right? No, I think he's still on the Bucks as of right now.
Okay.
Looks to be. Okay.
Yeah, I mean Milwaukee's not like a terribly deep team either.
Mhm.
Like you said, it just depends on Kuzma. I was way off with my percentage. That was kind of just an estimate or like a guess. I think that'll go up. I think that'll kind of settle back at like 33, 34% because I'd have to imagine he was probably taking 17 to 20 shots a game in Washington, and probably a lot of times being the focal point guy. I'm with you. I don't watch a whole lot of Washington basketball. All I see is just like whatever highlights they might have once every 25 games on
Right.
Twitter.
Low lights too.
Yeah. Um, I still think it's kind of like 50-50 because like Brunson, Cat, like, Josh Hart, Kel Bridges, like New York's still got a good team. Like the depth is obviously questionable.
Hmm.
I really think it depends on the buyout market. If
Hmm.
New York can go and get like another one or two players off the buyout market, then I'd probably favor New York. But I could also see Milwaukee being better come the end of the season. Like I said, I just think it depends on what you get out of Kuzma and if it's what I'm expecting, then I think Milwaukee probably gets the slight edge. But, like I said, it kind of just rides on what Kuzma does.
I think season for season, New York's going to continue to excel, especially if they don't endure any major injuries. Milwaukee should get a little better with Kuzma, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a series, though, if they happen to meet up in a series, I was thinking about this earlier. I kind of like Milwaukee in that series, just with New York's lack of front court depth. They should get Mitchell Robinson back,
Yeah.
but even then, even if you got Cat at the 5, say he's known to get in foul trouble. Say Giannis gets him out of the
Mm-hmm.
game, then you're relying heavily on Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa,
Yeah.
essentially. Um, so in that case, I do kind of like Milwaukee in a hypothetical series against the Knicks. I think that would be a tough 7-game series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't believe the Knicks didn't do anything though. And you mentioned the Orlando Magic didn't do much today. Didn't do anything
Yeah.
today actually. And the Magic I feel like are low key a contender. I like their talent. They're
Yeah.
missing Suggs, and he means a lot to their team. But I thought they would have taken off a little bit now with Paolo and Franz being back. I think Franz has only been back a week, but they're still. I think they're. I'm going to pull up the standings here.
I
Um,
think they're in the play-in. maybe because I think they're right around kind of like that same record. I think they're hovering right around 500.
You're correct. So we got Cleveland number one, Boston two, New York three, Indy's a game ahead of Milwaukee at four, Milwaukee's at the five, Miami's at six. They're a game ahead of, or a game and a half ahead of Detroit. Then you got Orlando at the eight, Atlanta at the nine, and Chicago lives at the 10 apparently. And then you got
Wow.
Philly right behind them, and then everyone else is in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. So
Wow.
Philly's obviously going to make a run. Philly didn't do much today, which they really didn't need to. They're a deep enough team. We saw Atlanta make some moves. So let me ask you about that. Or Atlanta sends DeAndre Hunter to Cleveland. Cleveland kind of empties out some depth that they have, and they get a good wing defender back in DeAndre Hunter. How do you like
Yeah.
that for them being the one seed?
I love that. I thought it was a great move. That was honestly one of my more favorite moves of the trade deadline in general.
Yeah, agree.
What did they give up? They gave up Karis LeVert, a couple
And
picks, and there
Yang,
was one other player. Yeah,
Georges.
Georges Yang. I love it because like Hunter, I want to say he was putting up about 19 a game. Like you said, he's a great defender. Um, I think Cleveland's getting what they thought that Isaac Okoro was going to be.
Mm,
I really
true.
think that's what they're getting. And like, you add him, I'm going to assume he's probably going to come off the bench. He could start. Could see a world where that happens. Man, you put him with Garland, with Mitchell, with Mobley, with Jared Allen. Um, like you got Struess there, Okoro. Like I love that move, and honestly too, like I really felt like they didn't give up a whole lot. Like yeah, Levert's a pretty good player, but like I think in terms of what you're getting back, I think it was a damn good trade for Cleveland. Like I really think that like
They got back more potential for sure. Levert's
yeah,
kind of
way more.
is.
Hunter's still young. I think Hunter's 27, 28. Was a top five pick. Like a lot of these guys like that were taken that high in the draft. You know, a lot of them really don't do too much of anything until it changes scenery. And you know, I think maybe going to what's a better culture in Cleveland right now and a way better team. Like I really honestly like I love that move. Like
I
if
agree
I
with
had to give it a grade, I think it would be the 8.5, 9 out of 10 kind of move for me. Like I think it's almost damn near a perfect fit.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Let's do a rundown real quick of the East. All right, I just kind of named them to you. So Cleveland, number one seed. We just said we both agreed they got better. Boston staying put. They just need to get healthy, which they seem to be with Porzingis now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
New York, it'll be the buyout market, so they're sitting pretty at the three, and they got a good lead over Indy and the Bucks. Indy didn't do anything.
No,
Um, I'm surprised they're at the four. Honestly, I mean that's a pretty successful season. How do you feel about Indiana in general?
I like Indiana. Like I feel like they're one of those teams that's just like because they're in a smaller market. Like I feel like they're a little more slept on than what they should be. Um, I think they got a great team, like with Hallie, with Pascal, um, Miles Turner, Nemhard. Like they got a really good team. I don't think they have the top end talent like the guys above them do, and like the superstar talent. But honestly, I really like. I look at Indiana as one of the more deeper teams in the NBA.
For
Like
sure, for sure.
I feel like they've got a really good solid rotation of about 8 to 10 guys that can come in and like give you, 25 plus, minutes a game, some of them 20 minutes plus, I like Indiana. Like, I could see them being a semis team again.
So let me ask you this: Milwaukee's a game behind them. Do you see Milwaukee overtaking them, or like do you see Milwaukee getting that top four seed?
I do. I do.
Okay. Okay. So
I
then
think
let
so.
me follow up with this: Miami, they're 2 games behind Milwaukee, 3 games behind Indiana. Do you see yourself being in that mix for the five? Do you guys get up to the five, or even try to get to the four? Do you guys fall back into the play-in after losing Jimmy? I mean, you guys have basically been playing without him. Now you got Wiggins who can create his own shot at the
Yeah.
least, because you guys are only 2 games ahead of Detroit as of right now.
I honestly, like, I think we get that. I think we get that 5 seed. I
So you
really
think
do. Like, I think
you think Indy falls back, y'all get the
yeah,
five. Got you.
I think we're out of the play-in. Couple reasons why. So one, I think I pointed out the other night, Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero has been absolutely amazing this year. Has really been like our go-to guy, our number one guy. Like you said with Wiggins, like shot creator, like can go get his own shot, like great defender, great 3-point shooter. I think that he hits another gear. Um, I really do. I think he puts up 20 points a game for us. And I really think he kind of is our number two guy. And I really honestly, like, I wouldn't be surprised, like, if you have nights where Hero and Wiggins kind of alternate, like, who's the number one guy.
So you think Wiggins turns it up to the number two?
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. Very
I
interesting.
think, I think because my reasoning for that is, like I said earlier, like with the Heat culture, like, if you look at what we've been getting out of Jovic, like Jovic, Khalil Ware, like all these guys, like even like Duncan Robinson was an undrafted guy. Like we always seem to get the most out of these players. I think if there's any coaching staff that can unlock that potential of Andrew Wiggins, I think it's Miami. Um, and honestly, too, like I really think it says something to me for them to kind of. I'm assuming they honed in on Wiggins. They've been negotiating with Golden State for a while now. Um, I really like. I think he takes over as the number two guy. I really do. Hell, I mean, he did it in Golden State, kind of like. I think it
All right.
also unlocks a little bit more for Bam too.
Quick question for you. And Bam has turned it up as of the last 5 games here, too. So let's say it plays out exactly how you said. Let's say Indy falls back to the 6, and you guys face Milwaukee in the first round. Milwaukee would have home court advantage. How do you see that series playing out, hypothetically?
I think Milwaukee wins, um, especially with it being in Milwaukee. I could see it being a 6 or 7 game series.
Okay.
I think it depends on how the young guys really like. I think in terms of our hypothetical big three or whatever with Hero, Bam, and now Andrew Wiggins, like I think it could be good. I think it could be really good. It just depends on those younger guys, but I still don't think like again going back to like the whole Lakers thing, top end talent. Like I'm riding with Giannis and Dame every single day of the week, even over what Miami has.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think they'll be good enough to get the 5 seed, but I think matchup wise, like I don't think they beat Milwaukee in a 7 game series. I hope they would, but I don't think they do.
Last question regarding Miami before we move on to the play-in side of things. You guys are right on that cusp between, you know, playoff and play-in. Are you afraid at all of Detroit catching you because they're 2 games behind you, or Orlando if they get healthy?
Ooh, that's difficult.
Because
Orlando,
I like Orlando's roster better than Miami, all healthy.
I do. No, I do too. I would take like I think Paulo, obviously with the healthy Paulo. Paulo to me is better than anyone that we have on Miami.
Mm.
Um, Franz is obviously great too. Um, it depends. Like I think if we're talking fully healthy, I'm taking Orlando over Detroit. Even with Detroit getting Jaden Ivey back, like yeah, Cade Cunningham's great and stuff, but I'd agree. Like I think the Magic fully healthy with Suggs, KCP, Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, Franz, Paulo, Jonathan Isaac, uh, Wendell Carter, like all these guys. If it's Wendell Carter, I think Wendell is still there. I could be wrong though. Or
Yeah,
did he get traded?
he's either still there or it seems like he got traded.
He might have.
Let's see. No, he's still in Orlando. Yeah, he's still in Orlando.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Okay.
did seem like he got traded though for some reason.
I
Uh,
think fully healthy. Yeah, I think fully healthy Orlando. I think fully healthy Orlando is better than Miami too because we've already seen it. Orlando when they were fully healthy beat the brakes off of Miami early in the season, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. So I think we're in agreement. You're in agreement with me that Philly overtakes Chicago for that last play-in spot. I think Chicago
Absolutely.
falls
Yeah.
out. All right, so that
Yeah.
means we'd have, if all holds, it'd be Detroit, Orlando, Atlanta, and Philly. Uh, who would be your two that advance out of that? You think?
right now, if I had to pick right now, probably Detroit and Orlando, because, and I understand I could certainly hear a Philly argument too, um, but like, is Joel Embiid going to be healthy? Like,
That's the thing.
what are you getting out of Paul George? Like, I feel more confident myself taking Cade Cunningham and Detroit over Philly right now. Like, yeah, they got like Tyrese Maxey's amazing, but like I said, like you might not even get Embiid for a whole 7-game series.
It's true.
There's a possibility that does not happen, and then Paul George too. Like, Paul George fell off a cliff this year. Like,
he really has. He really has.
And Atlanta, Atlanta has Trae Young, but they traded away Bogdanovich, and then DeAndre Hunter now too. Jalen Johnson's out for the rest of the year. Like,
they're hurt.
I just don't like Atlanta.
I think ultimately Philly gets it. My two picks would be Philly and Orlando. And if not them, I think Detroit's better suited than Atlanta to sneak in out of the other two. Atlanta's just hurt. Let's move on to the West. So OKC, they got Daniel Tice today. That would be their big move. They're already loaded. They're already – I think Chet comes back this Saturday.
Chet does, yep. He's cleared.
So I think we can all – I mean, I haven't asked you this. Do you have OKC coming out of the West, or is there another team you would think – I know you mentioned LA, but do you like any of the other guys in the West that could come out of the West?
I have OKC. Like,
yeah, this seems to be that way.
I just think, like, honestly, from top to bottom, like, you got Shea. Shea should be the MVP. Jay will. It's interesting, too. It'll be the first time that Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein have played together.
True. Very true.
Like,
that's right.
And then their bench, like, OKC's bench is, like, heavily slept on because it's honestly, like, a lot of lesser-known guys, like Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, like all these sort of guys that are just kind of, they're super deep, like unheralded players, like honestly, but like they're super deep and they're great role players. So I have OKC coming out on top in the West.
All right. So at 2, we got the Grizzlies as of today. As we said, they got rid of Marcus Smart. I think they just got picks back. I'm going to try to get the rest of the details on that. How do you feel about them? Is that a solid number 2? Then they got Houston right behind them, who made no moves, but are crazy deep as well.
I like Memphis's top end talent a little bit better than Houston. It's difficult because like both of those teams have been kind of bitten by the injury bug. I know Şengün's been in and out of the lineup for Houston, and Jabari Smith has been hurt as well too.
You ready for a name drop? You ready for a name drop real quick?
What you got?
Grizzlies got back Marvin Bagley.
Marvin Bagley,
who I didn't even know was still in the league, but he was apparently on Washington. So
that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, fuck it. Give me the Grizzlies. Marvin Bagley. Marvin Bagley season, baby.
Puts him over the top.
Yeah. No, I'd probably, if he's got a healthy Ja, healthy Bane, and healthy Triple J, then yeah, I'm gonna take the Grizzlies at the 2 all day long.
I agree with you. I like Memphis's roster in general. I actually had them preseason as my Western Conference finalist against OKC. Not sure how I feel about that right now. This is super interesting to me. The 4-5 matchup right now would be LA going to Denver, which is amazing. Denver did not do anything today. I thought for sure they would have picked up at least one guy. I guess they called about Bogdanovich, and of course he ends up with the Clippers, who are a 6 seed. So we got 4, 5, 6, Denver, LA, and the Clippers. Real quick about the Clippers. Do you feel like they got better with Bogdanovich and giving up Terrence Mann?
I think so. I think Bogdanovich is a little more established as a bench guy. Like I think I like Bogdanovich. Like in terms of,
and they gave up Bones Highland as well.
Yeah, Bones as well too. I like it. Again, it's like one of those things. I don't really know if it's a needle mover. I don't think it is. I think you're getting a good bench guy. Like I think he's a good 6th or 7th man. I did like the move though, even with giving up Terrence Mann. Like it was one of those moves where I was like, all right, that's a cool move. Like, didn't hate it. Wasn't like absolutely floored by it. But I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised they gave up Terrence Mann because he seemed to be a Ty Lue guy. He's been he's a dog. He's one of these guys who'll just play his ass off in a playoff series.
Yeah.
Certainly did that for the Clippers. But I do think they got better with Bogdanovich. He's a good shooter. He can kind of heat it up. Um, he's another one too who's a gamer. He'll compete too. So I think
Yeah.
that's a good pickup for them. And they're focused on defense mostly. So I think it balances out their team very well. Um, so let me ask you this with this order right here. Okay, Lakers
Mm-hmm.
got about a 3.5 game, 2.5 game lead over the last play-in team, which is the Timberwolves. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Clippers are a game out of the play-in, and then like I said, you get the Timberwolves at the 7, Dallas and whatever the hell that's going to look like as the 8, Sacramento at the 9, who got Zach LaVine and just got Jonas Valanciunas as well.
Yeah, Valanciunas too.
And then Phoenix, who's really just getting healthy. They're getting all their guys to play. They probably are the most, I don't want to say complete team, but they definitely have the most top end talent, as you say, out of that group,
Mm-hmm.
probably along with Dallas. And Phoenix, by the way, they got rid of Nurkic today for Cody Martin and Micic, the backup point guard for Charlotte. And then you have this where it gets crazy. So that's your 7 through 10. You have Golden State at the 11, same record as Phoenix, who now get Jimmy Butler, obviously. And then we talked about it Tuesday, I believe, and Keenan and I talked about it last night along with Tim. We all talked about how big we are of this De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs, how they could make a real playoff push. They're farther back than I thought. They're about, I guess they're only 2 games behind Phoenix, but 3 in the win column overall. And then they're out of this, but I didn't realize their record was this good or this close to San Antonio. But Portland's actually 22-29.
Yeah, they've won like 9 of their last 10. Like they've been on a heater lately.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So I don't see them making a push, but actually, like just reading this, having it laid out, I feel worse about San Antonio than I did the last 2 nights where I thought, I mean, I really do think if San Antonio were to get in, and you said the same thing, if San Antonio were to get in, there's really nothing stopping them from a conference finals berth other than shooting.
No.
Like, I really do feel like, and youth, obviously. But, man, I mean, Wemby's just a load to deal with. He can do so much. Like, he can already play make. He can obviously get his own shot, and then he's the best defensive player in the league. But hearing that, 7 through 12, and I'll include the Clippers in this at the 6 because they're right there. Who do you see falling out? And if you want me to read 7 through 10 again, let me know. But who do you see falling out? Do you see any of these teams moving up? Do you see it staying put? I'll give you that in order again one more time. I'll give you that in order.
What was it one more time?
Clippers 6, Timberwolves 7, Dallas 8, Sacramento 9, Phoenix 10, and then you've got Golden State and San Antonio at 11 and 12 on the outside looking in.
So, God, that is difficult. Dear Lord. I could see, God, the 2 teams that, like, I think have the highest potential to fall out. I don't even know if this is the right answer, but in terms of what I feel, it's the Clippers and the Suns. And then the Kings as well too. Like I think those 3 teams have the highest potential to drop out. The Clippers because it's like Kawhi, like are we going to get Kawhi for the rest of the year? Like is he going to be healthy? Like what are you getting out of James Harden? The Suns have been a mess even when they've been healthy. I understand they have KD and Booker, but like and then Beal too. But like outside of that, like they really don't have a whole lot. Like I told, like we were talking about earlier with the Nurkic trade, like getting back Cody Martin and Micic, like, okay, that's cool, but like,
but what's it?
Those are like, yeah, it's depth, but like, what are they doing for you? Like Cody Martin's an okay player, like Micic, cool, like good backup point guard. Like, I don't really know if you got better by that trade, and like honestly, you haven't been able to bet on Phoenix's health either.
Right.
You don't know if they're going to be healthy. Like, is KD going to be healthy? Like, is Devin Booker going to get hurt? Is Brad Beal going to be reliable? Like, is he going to go, on a cold streak like he has a penchant to do? And the Kings too. Like, I think the Kings are a cool team. But in terms of like the Timberwolves, and that sort of team, like even Golden State, like if I had to put those three teams up against Golden State, like I think I'm taking Golden State over all three of them
I think I
because I
agree
feel
with
like
you.
Golden State's deep, like especially too, like if you get playoff Jimmy, then like
It's a difference maker.
yeah, it could be a wrap. Yeah, I don't know. Those would be if I had to pick two of those teams, it would probably be. Oh, it's difficult. Probably the Sun, Phoenix, and the Kings. Let's go Phoenix and the Kings.
Interesting. Okay. And you think the Clippers back all the way out. So who do you think at least gets to the six then?
Oh man,
Is
I
that
think
like,
Minnesota.
oh, so you think Minnesota moves up and then, okay,
Yeah, I think
Kings.
Minnesota, when it's all said and done, takes that final spot.
And not the Warriors.
I think I'd. I think the Warriors are going to jump up. I really do. But still, like I think the Timberwolves are just going to figure it out.
Very
Like I
interesting.
really, like I really do. Like I don't know. Like I just I'm not going to bet against Anthony Edwards. Like I understand that it's been a little bit of a shit show this year, like with the Randall trade, and then they didn't, which they really did not anticipate Mike Conley falling off like he has. Um, I think they should have, but
Right.
I don't know if their cap. Yeah, I don't know what their cap situation looks like, but like I could see them being a player on the buyout market. But
True. That's true.
like I don't know. Like I'm not going to bet against Anthony Edwards. Like I'm not going to do it.
Okay. I,
So
I see where you're coming from.
like, but I do think like I think Golden State like it wouldn't surprise me if Golden State made a run. Like I think San Antonio too. Like was it Atlanta that they played the other night with
Yeah.
Fox's
Yeah.
first game? Like that score was pretty close. Like the game was very close. But like that's technically like a team that's like trying to get some chemistry. You know, like that's Fox and Wimby's first game together. Like I feel like if you look at it that way, like I feel like San Antonio could make a little run too, because like that's a damn good duo. And like you said, the only thing that could hold that team back is the shooting. Um,
So
I
I
mean
did
that's a
not watch I did not watch that game last night, but they actually started Fox and Chris Paul together, which is extremely interesting. Those are two small
wow.
guards. Yeah. And they won, like you said, it ended up being 126, 125. They came out with a win. I wonder if that's a concrete plan going forward because that seems tough defensively, which it might not even matter with Wemby back there. He covers for everything. I mean,
I would throw Castle in there instead of Chris Paul. I'd have Chris Paul run the bench unit.
I would think. I would think. I personally think I believe that the Clippers are going to stay put at the six. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even be surprised if they snuck into the five spot with LA, even though they do got 2 game lead. Um, they got a little more continuity, obviously, with LA having the whole roster overhaul. Uh, I actually think Minnesota falls out. Uh,
Okay.
Dallas is Dallas is the wild card to me with this whole Anthony Davis thing because he got injured right before this trade. It was a
Yeah,
groin injury, and groin injuries are never. They're kind of like calf injuries. Like you can give a diagnosis, you can give a timeline. You never
they
really know
linger.
until they come back.
Yeah.
So uh, Dallas is a wild card. I see Sacramento falling out, though they still have a lot of quality players. They got rid
Mm-hmm.
of Kevin Horter too. I think he went to Chicago. Um, then we got Phoenix. Phoenix and Golden State's the tough one to me because I agree with you. I think Phoenix has been a mess, but you can't really count out KD and Book. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I'm at. And then, like we said, Golden State. If you get playoff Jimmy, and I believe Kaminga, I think he'll be coming back after the break. So it could
Mm-hmm.
all balance out for them. If I had to pick two out of that group, including San Antonio and Golden State, I'm gonna say, damn, that's tough. I'm gonna say
I know.
Phoenix.
Like
I'm gonna say Phoenix and Golden State. I'm gonna give it to the vets. I do love if Anthony Davis can come back healthy. I like Dallas. I really do like Dallas out of that group, and I'd probably pick them.
yeah. I think
Phoenix.
yeah. I'm gonna change my answer up a little bit on that now that I'm thinking because it's honestly like there's a whole lot to process there. I'm gonna keep the Clippers where they're at. Um, I think Dallas makes a run though. Like now that I'm thinking, like if we're going health, especially with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, I'm going to take Dallas over Minnesota. And I know I just said I'm not going to bet against Anthony Edwards. I think Minnesota's a playing team. I still think Minnesota's going to find a way to make it in as a 7th or 8th seed. But if Dallas is healthy, I'm going to take Dallas over Minnesota. If they're not, then I'm going to ride with Minnesota. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay. Yeah. Phoenix and Golden State are about even for me. Yeah, if Dallas is healthy, I'm going to roll with Dallas. But just as of today, we're just going by today. I'm going to go Phoenix and Golden State. I'm going to ride with the vets. But all healthy, okay. I will go with Dallas and then either one of Golden State or Phoenix. I'd give the edge to Golden State.
That's so difficult.
Just like honestly, it is difficult.
If you put some of those teams in the East, then like I feel like a lot of those teams that were in kind of like that play-in for the East, like
they'd be outright playoff teams, probably.
Yeah, like if you took San Antonio and Golden State and you put them in the East, then like you don't have Atlanta sitting there, and then whoever else. Mm-hmm. Like that's what's so difficult about the West, especially after all these moves too. Like Dallas, Golden State, like those are 2 wild cards.
Extreme, yeah, absolutely. On top of Phoenix, like Phoenix has not had a 10 to 15 game stretch of consistency, and who's to say they don't hit that after the break? So, yeah, I'm gonna be and you know what? This seems to be the West every single year, where you got 4 teams, 5 teams near the play-in who can all just be legitimate playoff teams. Let me ask you this before we talk about the Super Bowl. I'm gonna give you. We'll talk music right quick. There's one good release, and then there's a lot of random releases. I just kind of want your gut reaction to these, all right? So we got the Larry June and 2 Chainz album produced by The Alchemist. How do you feel about that? What's your gut reaction to that?
It sounds interesting. Like right? It's definitely a project that I'm going to listen to.
For sure.
But I feel like I'm either it's going to be one of those things you're either going to hate it or you're going to love it. I like 2 Chainz, so I could see myself liking it, but I don't know. I'm interested to see what that sounds like that whole project. Like I want to see what it sounds like. I want to see if there's any guest features on there. Like it's definitely interesting, especially with The Alchemist producing that. Like that could be. I mean, he's a great producer, so I don't know. I could see it being a pretty good album, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like, okay, like I'm definitely going to have to give it a good listen through.
That's the thing. Larry June has his own laid back sound.
Yeah.
Alchemist is a kind of a gutta producer. You know what I mean? He's got that grimy sound. It's very New York.
Yeah.
Which Larry June ends up having some like New York sounding beats on his shit too, because it's so laid back. 2 Chainz seems like he's been trying to rap on these type of beats over the last 2 years, like just here and there, just for like sport. You know what I mean? So interesting career move by 2 Chainz to do this. 2 Chainz can lyricist it up. You know what I mean? He can really rap.
No, he definitely
can. So I think it's going to be dope. Like you, I'm interested to see the features on here. I'm definitely going to be listening to this. I'll do my little breeze through tonight, but I'll definitely listen to it in the whip tomorrow for sure. Then we got Key Glock's dropping a song. K Camp's dropping a song. You like either one of those 2 artists?
I like Key Glock. Big Key Glock fan. K Camp. Like I feel like kind of after 2016, 2017, a lot of his stuff just kind of got repetitive.
I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna send you some K Camp. A couple of his projects from the last few years. Think you'll fuck with it.
Okay.
He's become super underrated to me because I thought the same thing. I didn't hear much about him. Then someone was telling me, they're like, "No, you got to listen to some new K Camp. Like he's got some shit," and they were not lying. They were not lying. Key Glock, I'm with you. Key Glock's all right. I like Key Glock here and there. Here's some shit straight out of 2012 and then 2007. 2 albums dropping tonight. All right. Can I interest you? Can I interest you in a new Tyga album called NFSU? Not safe for work. NSFU. NSFW, pardon me.
I don't know if you could interest me in a Tyga album in 2025.
I don't think I'm checking into any Tyga album, especially one that's called Not Safe for Work. What about
Yeah,
this? Is even more wild though. This is even more wild. Soldier Boy album in 2025.
don't think I'm going to be checking that one out either.
Can't say I am either.
I don't think I'm going to be cranking that Soldier Boy.
And then this one's kind of crazy because this could, I think it's going to go the right way. I saw this and I was kind of like, So you obviously got Tweaker by Jello, Leangelo Ball. Which,
Yep.
how did you feel about that? Were you in on that craze? Were you pleasantly surprised? Did you hate it? How'd you feel about it?
I was surprised. I was like my expectations were pretty relatively low, and it sounded like obviously don't love it, but like I don't think it was terrible. I think it was better than what I expected.
So we got the remix dropping tonight with Wheezy F.
Lil Wayne.
So I mean, we could get motivated Lil Wayne on that. It's a New Orleans kind of, actually more like a Midwest sounding beat, but I could see Lil Wayne just kind of going mixtape Wayne on it. I could definitely see that.
I mean, see it, yeah.
The beat is hot. The beat is hot. Then we got Tommy Richmond. Not sure if you care about that. I don't know. And Denzel Curry. Are you familiar with IDK?
Yeah, I love IDK.
Interesting. I feel like I see him on a bunch of features, and he's on a bunch of songs that I like, but I can't really like decipher who he is. So you're a fan.
He's got some. I'm gonna send you some of his stuff because he's got some albums now. I don't love every single song that he has, but like there's some songs that are in my rotation for sure that he makes.
Okay. All right. And yeah, maybe we will review this music next week. Seeing and there's always stuff that comes out that's not in the list that, surprise drops. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And obviously we talked about next Friday. We do got some good music dropping between the They album and the Drake and Party collab album.
Yeah.
But Brandon, it's Thursday. We are a few days away. We've made it this far somehow without even discussing the Super Bowl. Give me your analysis. Give me your pick. What do you think? Are you excited for this game? Are you more excited for the halftime show? What do you think? Tell me.
Oh man, I'm definitely excited for the halftime show.
Sure.
I'm interested to see what Kendrick Lamar does, what songs he performs, and honestly too, I think I'm even more so anticipating that because maybe he comes out and says he's dropping an album. We've talked about it before. Do we get a Kendrick album after this? Like, is there a surprise drop at midnight? Like, that sort of thing.
Shit would be wild.
So, yeah, that would be crazy. Perfect timing too to do it. Honestly, looking forward to the halftime show. I really think it's going to be one of the better halftime shows we've gotten from the Super Bowl. In terms of the game, I wasn't really too excited about it at first because it's a Philly Kansas City rematch, and obviously too, like I don't think anyone outside of Kansas City wants to see Kansas City in the Super Bowl
for sure.
But I think it's going to be a good game. I really do. Like I think both teams match up well. I think there's a lot of firepower on Philly's side. But I think Kansas City just I think Kansas City wins as much as it pains me to say.
Repeat.
Yeah, like I'm obviously rooting for Philly. But I learned a valuable lesson last year during the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. Don't bet against Kansas City. Like, I was for certain last year that San Francisco was going to come out on top. I felt like San Francisco had the better team.
Same.
And honestly, like it kind of feels like a little bit of the same thing. Like I feel like on paper, Philly's got the better team. Like Philly's got a damn good defensive line. Like they've got a good secondary. Like skill players. I think they have the best offensive player, maybe second best. That's a non-quarterback with Saquon Barkley. It depends on how you want to group him and Jamar Chase. Like Saquon, like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard. Like I obviously hope that Philly wins. And like I tried talking myself into backing Philly on this, but I look at it this way, like regardless of skill positions, regardless of defense, because Kansas City has a great defense too. I think both defenses are neck and neck. I'd probably give the edge to Kansas City
Interesting.
with the play calling.
Okay.
I look at it this way: am I going to back Jalen Hurts? Or am I going to back Patrick Mahomes?
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Like, regardless of who's around them, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes 10 out of 10 times over Jalen Hurts. I think for Philly to win, like I think Saquon's got to run wild. But honestly, too, like I think Jalen Hurts is the most important piece for Philly. I really do because he cannot come out and have a 150-yard passing game. Like
Yeah.
he's got to go out there like if he throws for 175, then he better have 70, 80 yards on the ground.
Mm.
Like he better take a play, a game script out of his Oklahoma or Bama playbook. I don't know. Like I feel like it's Kansas City. I feel like the NFL wants Kansas City to win. Like I really do.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother conversation that I mean I can't disagree with. I can't disagree with. I mean we talked about it in depth last week, you, Tim, and I,
Yeah,
with the whole where's the chain gang thing on the fourth down. Again, he might have Dalton Kincaid might have got it on the third down. I'm so, I'm just as upset as Bills fans. I think about that whole 5 minute interaction there, but
yeah,
so I was the only one and remain the only one that has taken Philly. Tim and Keenan were with you. They took Kansas City.
hmm
And we all pretty much had the same analysis. Like I agree with you. I actually like Philly's defense a little more, but I agree with you. Spags is a fucking legendary DC. So you gotta give him his respect. He's got 4 Super Bowl rings himself. So you do
yeah,
gotta give them the play calling nod. Vic Fangio, he himself is a stud DC. I like this team much more than KC. But you're exactly right. When it comes down to it, Jalen Hurts going to have to make some plays, which he did, by the way, in the NFC Championship game. I
no,
mean,
absolutely did. Yeah,
because I'm close to where you fall on Jalen Hurts, where it's like, yes, you can win with him. Yes, he's a great leader. But when it comes to just dropping back and throwing, there's probably 12 quarterbacks I'd take over Jalen Hurts. And I
yeah,
get he's had the playoff success. I get he's had, real success, period. Like they're constantly in the playoffs. Uh, but I think a lot of that is a product of Sirianni and obviously the offensive line and Saquon and whoever
yeah,
else they've had at running back in years past. But you can't deny the success. He's obviously a successful quarterback, and again, he's a great leader. But you're right when it comes back just to dropping back, passing, having to go out and get it, down 8 maybe. Like if they're down 8 in this game and they need a score, they can't get a field goal, they need a touchdown. Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit nervous back in Philly
yeah,
in this game. Whereas I would like to see if Philly can get the ball first and kind of get up on a team,
hmm
uh, especially on KC. I think that could be a recipe for success. I
yeah,
think KC's better from behind, possibly. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say because I like the Eagles' offense, like just their weapons and their offensive line in general. I like it a lot better than KC's. But Mahomes can actually throw the ball downfield and get out of the pocket and make plays. He just doesn't have the weapons that Philly has. But I completely
yeah,
agree with you. It's going to be a close game. I picked Philly, I think 28-25, if not 28-24.
hmm
Probably 28-25. I picked them. So I think we're going to
okay,
get some scoring. I think Philly gets it done. I think Saquon does run wild. And I ultimately, I hope we get a good game. I hope KC does not win. And yeah, I hope we get a great halftime show too. I think it's got
I
potential to be a legendary halftime show.
I think so. I'll give you my score prediction. I think Kansas City wins 31-28.
Field goal.
My my gut's telling me Kansas. My brain's telling me Kansas City. Just thinking and using logical reasoning. But I am all Philly on this. I think if Philly wins, I think it's two things. I think it's Saquon Barkley, and I'm
Okay.
going to give you another name
Okay.
that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, and it's obviously on offense, and that's Devontae Smith. I I feel like he is so overshadowed. I feel like he's so underrated. Like I really like AJ Brown's going to do AJ Brown things. Like we know that. We've come to expect that. I think Devontae Smith has got to have one of those games where, he puts up 100 plus yards and a touchdown. Um, you're going to have Saquon running wild. Like we talked about last week, I think Saquon's got to get involved as a receiver.
Mm.
I really do. Like, if you're going to get Jalen Hurts going, I feel like you got to settle him in with maybe a screen pass, a couple of swing routes, like hit Dallas Goedert on some, 5 yard intermediate routes, and really get the run game going. I just feel like it's going to be the typical Kansas City game where it's going to come down to, Philly ties it up and then Kansas City goes right down the field and, has a game winning drive. With that being said, though, I could see Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis making Patrick Mahomes like a living hell.
That was pretty much my other key to victory was KC has weak tackles. Obviously, Carter and Davis, they play more on the inside, but man, if they can create pressure on the outside and then just let Jalen Carter wreak havoc on the inside because he's had an amazing postseason. Like, there's a recipe there where the Eagles can win by 10. And that's kind of why I'm sticking with them close because I have enough respect for KC, obviously, to keep it close, and most people will have them winning. But man, I mean, when you just break it down to player by player, and they're well coached on top of that, and I mean, we got a really good Super Bowl between them last time, right? KC was a
Yeah,
more explosive offense at that time, so I don't know. My heart obviously says Philly, but my head's actually leaning Philly more than I thought. More than I thought.
really.
I mean, you gotta be scared of KC. Mahomes deserves that respect. Andy Reid and Spags deserve that respect, but it's hard not to see Philly righting the wrong from last time, just with the amount of talent they have. And again, like you
Yeah,
said, it'll largely depend on Hurts making a few plays with his arm for sure. And to your Devontae point, it does seem when they have a big win in the postseason or a big regular season game that he has at
Devontae.
least two plays like 40 yards down the field where he's making a big
Yeah,
catch. So I could definitely see that. Um, Keenan's more in line with you. Keenan's got it kind of like where KC's outlasting, like everyone on Philly who needs to have a good game is going to have a good game, but KC ultimately gets it done. Tim actually has Saquon getting shut down. Like I think he said
really.
less than 80 yards, I believe he said. And I think he's got a 23-17 KC. So he's got it low scoring and Saquon
Wow.
just non-factor.
I see. I can't see that. Like with how good Philly's offensive line is. Like, here's my thing. Casey couldn't stop James Cook. If
It's true.
Buffalo doesn't like James Cook, no disrespect to him, but he is nowhere near Saquon. And Buffalo's offensive line is nowhere near Philly's.
It's
Um,
true.
and I think too, like I do, like now that I'm thinking about it, I do agree with you. Like if you're going to do a positional breakdown, I think on the offense, like you obviously got to give the nod wide receiver and running back to Philly. Quarterback, tight end probably goes to Kansas City. O line, you could probably go with Philly. Um, defensively, like that's when your matchups come into play. Like we had talked about, like Philly, they got a great secondary, but you're going to have two rookie corners playing on the biggest
True.
stage in football.
That's true.
And it's like Cooper DeJean has been amazing. Quinyon Mitchell has been amazing as well too. Like that's when you see a tendency like for rookies to kind of make those rookie mistakes.
It's true.
And I really feel like all it takes is one time for Xavier Worthy to get behind the defense, and it's wraps. Like,
That's true. And that's who's really going to play a big role for KC is Worthy. If
yeah,
Worthy doesn't have at least one or two big plays, it's hard for me to really see KC winning. And then
mhm,
on top of that, if the Eagles can at least create one turnover, they don't turn the ball over enough. They thrive off ball control to where I think if they can get one from KC, that could be enough. That could be the difference.
yeah,
Uh, and as really as simple as can the Eagles keep them out of the end zone? Can they hold them to field goals? Because if, like you said, if Saquon can get off like James Cook did, which I believe he is, um, like what's the answer? It's going to be hard to match 7 with 3 if Philly's defense is more than
yeah,
up to the task. But I think that'll be largely dependent on Xavier Worthy. Hollywood Brown will make some plays, I believe. Kelsey,
mhm.
I'm sure, is going to try to go out with a bang here. Keenan thinks he's going to
Yeah. He'll
retire
get his.
if Casey wins. So I see Kelsey at least getting 7 catches, 6 or 7 catches at the least. Uh, maybe more. He could have that. Well, it was the divisional game where he had like 12 for over 125 yards, I believe. So
Yeah, it was something ridiculous like that. I could see a game like that. You'll probably see Taylor Swift another 10, 15 times.
we talked about that too. We gave the over under on that too. So you went way over. I actually went under. I went under. I played devil's advocate on that one. So,
Okay.
man, I don't know. See, like the more we talk about it, the more I could see KC winning. But I really do think like even if Kelsey had a big game, if Worthy didn't have one deep play or one end around where he took it to the house, I don't know. Just because Saquon has that big playability, you could shut him down the whole game, and all he needs is one. You know?
Yeah, because then if you look at it this way too, which I can kind of see why you're taking Philly as well too, because if it was any team other than Kansas City, I would be taking Philly because I think Philly roster wise probably has the best roster in the NFL.
Yeah, it's up
If
there
not, if not one of the best.
for sure.
Like with Kansas City, you're running game wise, you're relying on Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco hasn't looked good since he came back from, I think he had a leg fracture or something. Kareem Hunt's been good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Kelsey's going to get his. That's going to happen. I don't think that I don't think there's a world where that doesn't happen. Like you said, it comes down to Worthy, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. Like one of those guys has to step up and have 2 or 3 big catches. And I think
Sure, I forgot about D Hop.
yeah, I think it's got to be Worthy if it's anyone because Worthy has that game breaking speed. I don't know. I mean, I'm excited. I really am. Like I wasn't at first. Like obviously after the AFC Championship game, I was kind of like, oh, like we're going to rematch, the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, whatever. And like the more and more that I started paying attention to it, the more I'm like, okay, this could be a good game. And like I think Philly has a great shot to win. I really do. Like I understand I'm picking Kansas City, but I really think Philly has a great shot. And like if Philly won by a touchdown, I would not be surprised. I really wouldn't. And like you said, I think it'll come down to a turnover. I think maybe they get an interception on Mahomes. Because, like you said, with Vic Fangio is going to mix up his coverages. He's going to throw a lot at you, just like Spags.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and they run some exotic blitzes. Like you said, try to get some edge pressure and maybe mix up their coverages a little bit. Maybe they put Reed Blankenship or on Kelsey, or whatever. Because that's the other thing with Philly, like their safeties are good, and they've got ball hawks back there.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, like having the rookie corners, that does scare me a bit for the Eagles. But like you said, if they can handle it inside with the safeties, especially if they can bottle up KC's run game, get him playing from second and long, third and long. That's been the weirdest thing for me is how, like you said, Pacheco's been a non-factor since he got back. And he was playing
Yeah.
really well for them. I mean, he was a big part of why they won the Super Bowl and made that run last year.
Yeah.
And for them to be running more or relying more on Kareem Hunt than Pacheco, it's not necessarily a bad thing because who's to say Pacheco won't have a good game and then you get a double-headed monster. But it's interesting. It's interesting. And there's just more points of emphasis to me that point to Philly, but you just can't count out KC. You can't count out the infrastructure. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly my main reasoning with taking Casey is honestly Mahomes. Like that is the only reason that I can give you as to why I would pick Kansas City because I think Philly's better in many other faces of the game. Like in position groups, everything. Mahomes is literally the only reason.
absolutely.
And Andy Reid too.
For sure. And that's the thing. They're going to have amazing play calling one way or another from Andy Reid. They're going to cook up their best plays, especially early on in the game, especially late in the game if it comes to that. So, yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I said the same thing last night. Coming out of championship week, I was like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like, we're going to get this again, and, it'll be a close game and this and that. And then the Luka trade happened, and that's kind of occupied all the space pretty much up until today and really into tomorrow, really. I mean, we're still talking trades here. And then when we were talking about it yesterday, I'm like, you know what? I am kind of looking forward to it because it is going to be a good game at the end of the day. It doesn't seem to have blowout potential. So, and then you got Kendrick too, which is the last thing I'm going to ask you before we sign off. Any major predictions for this halftime show?
Ooh. I'm gonna give you. Like I already dropped my outlandish prediction, and that's him dropping an album
Ooh,
or announcing that he's dropping an album.
okay.
I'm gonna give you one outlandish and one realistic. Outlandish. I'm gonna go with the album, whether he announces it or drops it.
Okay.
I think with you performing at the Super Bowl, you're gonna have about as much eyes on you as you're ever gonna have as an artist performing at the Super Bowl. You got to figure there's gonna be close to 100 million people watching this, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know.
True story.
I think it'd be a perfect time to announce an album or maybe drop one. Maybe you drop another little EP or something like that. I think that's going to be my outlandish prediction is that he drops a release date, something like that. In terms of just a regular prediction, does he have any announced guests?
It sounds like SZA is sharing the stage with him. It sounds like she's going to be prominently featured.
Okay. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, like if he kind of brings out like, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, like I could just see him bringing out like some people from TVE. Like I really could. Like
True.
I could see J Rock coming out or like School or I don't know about Absol. Like I think it'd be sick if you brought out Absol, but I think in terms of like mainstream, like Absol's not really that mainstream guy.
Yeah,
like, even though Absol's amazing,
kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think TDE or something along the lines of that. Like I don't know. It just feels like I don't know. It feels like kind of like a TDE rollout, kind of. You bring out J Rock and Schoolboy Q. You've seen collard greens,
It'd be good.
And whatever you want to do with J Rock. I feel like there's going to be some sort of guest.
You know what? Now that you say that, like "Win" would be a good song. Like if you brought out J Rock and he just did "Win" for 2 minutes, gave you a verse and the hook. That's a maybe Super Bowl song.
King's Dead.
Yeah. Bring out Future, maybe.
Yeah, you could do that.
You just bring out Future, do King's Dead. That leads into like that. I didn't even think of that. Of that. That would be kind of crazy. That would be insane, actually.
Damn, that'd be fire, actually.
That's a good one. You stumbled into something good right there. That would be crazy if they went into like that, because they confirmed. We were talking about it last night. They confirmed that he's absolutely doing Not Like Us. That's absolutely on the set list. That was actually going to be my bold prediction, was that he's not going to do it at all. But I happened to come across that before the set list. And then, me and you talked before, like, it really does seem like a smart move would be to either drop an album or announce an album. I've kind of cooled off that too. But now you got me thinking, like, him bringing out Future, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, he's a popular enough artist. I don't know if he's probably not Super Bowl friendly if he were to do his own set list Future. But just on the Future.
Codeine and
right? Even King's Dead's hook, like that's a kind of wild hook to sing at the Super Bowl. But if he did that on top of like that, I'm gonna key in on that. I'm really hoping that happens now. That wasn't even in my thought process when it came to this, but I really like that for the Super Bowl halftime.
I could see that because I mean that's kind of what I wouldn't say. I don't want to say blew Kendrick Lamar back up, but like that's kind of what brought him back to the forefront.
That's what started all this mess. That's what started all this mess for sure. Branndon, any final thoughts before we go?
Not really. Just a wild trade deadline. Loved it. Amazing. Can't wait till next year's. And go Eagles.
Facts. Yeah, I mean, hey, legendary trade deadline. Let's hope for a legendary Super Bowl and a legendary halftime show. Branndon, thanks again for joining. Warner Brothers Podcast will be back. Check out Keenan, Tim, and I's Super Bowl predictions. You could almost call that a Super Bowl prediction part 1 to this part 2. You got 2 predictions. There you go. But check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok. Keep showing love, keep showing hate. We love it. So Warner Brothers Podcast, we're out of here.